Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, नहीं आ रहा, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare हरे जय श्री राधा। जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे। जय ललिता विशाखा जय राधे श्याम ललिता विशाखा जय राधे श्याम। जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम। कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय गौरानिताय 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 जय गौरानिताय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शिल प्रभुपदा श्री गुरु चरणा पद्मा केवल भक्ति सद्मा श्री गुरु चरणा पद्मा केवल भक्ति सद्मा बंद मोहि सावधान माते बंद मोहि सावधान माते जहाँ प्रसादे भाई ए भव तरिया जाय जहाँ प्रसादे भाई ए भव तरिया जाय कृष्ण प्राप्ति हाय जहाँ होते कृष्ण प्राप्ति हाय जहाँ होते गुरु मुख पद्मा वाक्य चित्ते ते करिया क्या गुरु मुख पद्मा वाक्य चित्ते ते करिया क्या आरो ना करी माने आशा आरो ना करी माने आशा श्री गुरु चरणे रति यही से उत्तम गति। श्री गुरु चरणे रति यही से उत्तम गति। जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा। जे प्रसाद पूरे सर्व आशा। चक्षुदान दिलो जय ही जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से ही। चक्षुदान दिलो जय ही जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से ही। दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित। दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित। प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते। प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते। वेद गाय जहाँ रचरित। वेद गाय जहाँ रचरित। वेद गाय जहाँ रचरित। श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु। श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु। लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना। लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना। हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पद छाया। हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पद छाया। इबे अस घुसु त्रिभुवाना। इबे अस घुसु त्रिभुवाना। प्रभुपाद पति पवाना। प्रभुपाद लोकेर जीवाना। जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शिला प्रभुपदा। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्त वृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्त वृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 राम Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. अभी भी ज़्यादा है. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Hare. Little lesser. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna, bolo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari. Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Randana. Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Randana. Yamuna Tera Vanachari. Yamuna Tera Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Randana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Randana. Yamuna Tera Vanachari. Yamuna Tera Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradha Hari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradha Hari. Yashoda Nandana Brajana Randana. Yashoda Nandana Brajana Randana. Yamuna Tera Vanata Hari. Yamuna Tera Vanata Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe. Jaya Radhe Sham Radhe Sham Radhe Sham Jaya Radhe Sham. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Nitai Gaura Hare Bal, Hare Bal, Hare Bal, Nitai Gaura Hare Bal. Nitai Gaura Hare Bal, Hare Bal, Hare Bal, Nitai Gaura Hare Bal. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस सर्वचाया सोता सत्य शिष्यमत चिलय शिवक्ति विराट सन शिल प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस सर्वचाया सोता सत्य शिष्यमत चिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर शिल प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की श्री रूप श्री सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ जी जीव गोपाल भक्त रस रघुनाथ सार को स्वामी प्रभु के प्रेम से को श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवजरी गौर भक्त वृंद के श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपी गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जाय। वृंदावन धाम की जाय, मथुरा धाम की जाय, मैपुर धाम की जाय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जाय, तुलसी महारानी भक्ति देवी की जाय, गंगा यमुना देवी की जाय, हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जाय, श्री श्री गोमिताय की जाय, श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जाय, श्री श्री राधा श्याम सुंदर की जाय, गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल, समवेत भक्त वृंद की जाय। All glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashtapaye shabadeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistikim ete cham sakala pumsam krishnastu bhagavan sayam indriyar vyakalam lokam ridyante yuge yuge nama sankirtanam yasya sabha papa pranasanam pranamaduka samanastam namami harim param. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 21st chapter. The gopis glorify Krishna's flute. Text number 6. Iti Vinudavam Rajan Sarva Bhuta Manoharam Shrutva Vrajastriya Sarva Vanayantyo bhire bhire Iti Vinudavam Rajan Sarva Bhuta Manoharam Shrutva Vrajastriya Sarva Vanayantyo bhire bhire Iti Vinudavam Rajan Sarva Bhuta Manoharam Shrutva Vrajastriya Sarva Vanayantyo bhire bhire Iti thus Venudavam, the vibration of the flute, Rajan, O King Parikshit, Sarvabhuta, of all living beings, Manaharam, stealing the minds, Shrutva, hearing, Brajastriya, the lady standing in the village of Braj, Sarva, all of them, Varnayantya, engaged in describing, Abhire Bhire, embraced one another. Translation and purport by the disciples of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. O king, when the young ladies in Braj heard the sound of Krishna's flute, which captivates the minds of all living beings, they all embraced one another and began describing it. Purport. The word iti here indicates that after becoming speechless, by remembering Krishna, the coward damsels then regained their composure and were thus able to, as a few gopis began to exclaim, and the other gopis realized that they shared the same ecstatic love within their hearts, all of them started embracing one another, overwhelmed with conjugal love for young Krishna. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshoran Militam Yanam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupakatamayam Dadati Sabadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vidamascha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Ganta Radha Ganta Namastade Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshare Brishabhano Sade Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Iti Vinuravam Rajan Sarvabhutamanohanam Shrutva Vrajastriya Sarva Vanayanto Bire Bire. So King, the Sukadeva Goswami addressing King Parikshit Maharaj. O King, when the young ladies in Braj heard the sound of Krishna's flute, which captivates the minds of all living beings, they all embraced one another and began describing it. So Sukadeva Goswami is an eternal associate of Krishna. Shuka, so that refers to a parrot, and it has been described by the Acharyas that Sukadeva Goswami is actually a parrot in Braj, glorifying the divine couple. So by Krishna's will, just to bless the fallen conditioned souls, specifically of course also to instruct Parikshit Maharaj, but actually for our benefit. So he had come to this world, and so he's describing the beautiful pastimes of Krishna and Braj in the 10th canto. As we have gone through the 9 cantos, which is very much necessary, first of all to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not only that, but as explained in the 1st canto, Ete Chamsa Kalapumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Sayam Indriyar vyakulam lokam vridyante yuge yuge. The Krishna is the source of everything, of all the spiritual material worlds, of all the energies, and different incarnations are there, but all expansions, ete samsa kalapam sams. Direct expansions of Krishna, expansions of the expansions of Krishna. And so he has come to this world, as explained by himself also, to protect the devotees, to establish dharma, and to annihilate demonic persons. So for that purpose, so Krishna also, in order to benefit the conditioned souls, he spoke the Bhagavad-Gita, so that we understand that we are not this body, that we are spirit soul, that we have a relationship with him, ultimately. And throughout the Bhagavatam, so the devotees who are studying under proper guidance, they will firmly understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and that they are not this body, spirit, soul, which is the beginning of spiritual life. And then slowly but surely one can advance, as Rupa Goswami has explained, the process of devotional service from Shraddha to Prem. That first we must have faith in the words of Krishna, the spiritual master, the Vaishnavas, and then we can engage in devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master. And by doing that we become purified. The consciousness becomes purified, the senses become purified, and then we can better and better understand the Supreme Lord and His pastimes. So once of course the unlimited anarthas, unwanted things in the heart, but by engaging devotional service, slowly but surely one is purified, then one becomes fixed in devotional service. And then one will get a taste for chanting the holy names, for serving the Lord, and then one can become attached to Krishna and detached from this material world. And then transcendental emotions are coming from the heart, and there's a transcendental loving exchange with Krishna. At that point then, we can understand very nicely the pastimes of Krishna in Braj also, which are divided in three. First is Krishna's pastimes described in Braj, from his appearance till, of course, killing many demons. And the acharyas have explained by listening to these descriptions, the different anarthas in the heart, they are vanquished, they are destroyed. And then loving sentiments will automatically manifest. And then we can really appreciate the wonderful pastimes of Krishna with his, as it says in Braj, his parents, his friends, even the animals, and then ultimately the gopis also. And different stages of love of Godhead are there. Prem, Sneha, Man, Rag, Anurag, Bhav. Sneha, Man, Pranay, Rag, Anurag, Bhav, Mahabhav. So the loving exchanges between Krishna and the gopis, these are the most exalted, of course, pastimes are there. And so in order to fully be able to appreciate, so one must be purified in consciousness. And then one can understand the transcendental emotions which are described by Rupa Goswami also in the Nectar of Devotion. So there he has explained between the servants and Krishna the different emotions which are there, and then with the friends, and in parental affection, and then in conjugal relationship. And Prabhupada has explained that unless and until we are on the platform of bhav, we cannot fully understand this loving sentiments of the eternal associates. But by hearing from the devotees in disciplic succession, slowly but surely the consciousness is purified. But as explained, so first we must have strong faith and realization, understanding that we are not this body, that we are servants of Krishna, and Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Later on, as explained by Rupa Goswami, So sadhana bhakti is there, following rules and regulations. And then afterwards we can enter into the realm of raganuga bhakti. That means a spontaneous devotional service, following in the footsteps of the associates of Krishna in Braj. So when we are more purified in consciousness, then we can better appreciate and understand, and then ultimately, as explained in the Bhagavatam, already in the beginning also, Nigama kalpataror galitam palam sukamukadam ridadeva sammadam vivada bhagatam rasamalayam muhuro rasika bhuvi bhagavatam bhavukaha. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the Vedic tree of transcendental knowledge, the essence of the Vedic literatures. And it has become more sweet because it has been spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, and the example is given by the Acharyas. Just now we have of course the summer season is almost finished, and the wonderful mangoes are there and they are very sweet. So in the beginning, the mangoes, they're always wonderful, and even when the mangoes are not ripe, then the expert cooks, Vedic culture and Vaishnav culture, they will take the unripe mangoes and they will make a chutney with that, or a cooling drink also. So it is always relishable and actually very good for the body. Pushti, it is nourishing the body and enlivening the body and the senses and then the consciousness. So it is explained when the parrot is actually tasting the mango, even when it is not yet ripe, or just in the beginning stage, then becomes more sweet. So similarly, Krishna, of course, is always sweet and wonderful, most sweet. Krishna is the essence of all sweetness. But in the beginning stage, we may not realize if one is conditioned. But then if we hear from the pure devotees, from their lotus mouth, the wonderful descriptions of Krishna's pastimes, all the pastimes of Krishna and Braj, then we can relish. And so the devotees in purified consciousness, Bhavuk and Rasik Vaishnav, they can relish these wonderful descriptions of Krishna's pastimes, especially in Braj. But the learned devotees who are relishing the Bhagavatam, they can relish all of Krishna's pastimes. At the same time, if we do some comparison, the pastimes of Krishna in Braj are the most wonderful, most sweet than the pastimes of Krishna in Mathura and Dwarka. On what to speak of the pastimes of the different incarnations or the different expansions of Krishna in Vaikuntha. So it is by great fortune, by Mahaprabhu's mercy and by the associates of Mahaprabhu, and then of course the devotees in disciplic succession, Srila Prabhupada, who has presented the Krishna book, in which he has very nicely explained about the wonderful pastimes of Krishna, but giving also a little bit of philosophical touch, because we cannot just simply hear the pastimes of Krishna, especially in Braj, of the 10th canto, but we must have a sound spiritual understanding, firm faith that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and practical realization, maybe not to the fullest extent, but understanding that we are not this body, we are spirit soul, and then when we are properly engaged, then we can actually hear and describe these pastimes, and then we can relish these wonderful pastimes of Krishna in Braj. So here, the Gopi, the Venu gate. So, as explained, all of Krishna's pastimes, as explained in the 10th canto, are most wonderful and perfect and complete. Also, it is explained that Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka are perfect, Krishna's pastimes in Mathura are more perfect, and Krishna's pastimes in Braj are most perfect. In the first part of the 10th canto, from first chapter till the 35th chapter, the pastimes of Krishna and Braja are explained. Also the Acharyas have explained, and actually they are even later on in the 47th chapter, when Krishna, it is explained how Krishna asked Uddhav to come to Braj and then give a message to the Brijavasis, but specifically the gopis. So that is known as the Uddhav Gita. And of course in there is also the Brahmar Gita is there. So 5 Gitas are there, famous in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, in regards to Krishna's pastimes, but specifically with the gopis. So the first of them, which we are discussing here, is known as the Venu Gita. The gopis glorifying Krishna's flute. Of course, ultimately the gopis are glorifying Krishna. At the same time, as we also supposed to not only glorify Krishna, but Krishna's devotees, Krishna's associates. So the gopis, who are the foremost of all of Krishna's associates, devotees, so they're glorifying Krishna's flute. And as we know, in this world, we also know there are many flute players and many flutes are there. Traditionally in India, the most celebrated flute, of course ultimately because of Krishna's pastime, is the bamboo flute, which is just a piece of bamboo wood, as we know. And other flutes may be there, so made of different metals, and even Krishna has different flutes. She has many flutes, big size, medium size and small size. Vamsi, Murli and Venu. But not only 3 size, but then he has many of them, and they all have a different name. All the flutes of Krishna, they have a name, like Sammohini. So very enchanting everyone. So if Krishna is playing the flute, as described here, we will hear. So what is the effect of Krishna's flute playing? So the gopis are relating that also, which is most wonderful. And then we have the Gopi Gita, so that is part of the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters dealing with the Rasa Lila. So in the midst of that, so the Gopi Gita is there. After that we have the Pranaya Gita, so the feelings of separation are there in Gopi Gita, and then Pranaya Gita, when they meet again, and the loving sentiments are there, as explained, Prema, Sneha, Man, Pranay, Rag, so the different sentiments are there of the different levels of Prem, which are there, which are described in the scriptures by Rupa Goswami or the Acharyas, just for our understanding. And then by hearing submissively and engaging in devotional service in due course of time, we can appreciate fully, we can realize the subject matter slowly but surely. But even in the beginning we may not be able to understand, but simply by hearing, so that is a kind of, the purification will be there, as even in the last chapter of Rasa Panchadhyaya, Sukadeva Goswami is explaining that by hearing and reciting the pastimes of Krishna, specifically with the gopis also, and by remembering them, then Hridrogam, the disease of the heart, which is lust, is eradicated. So, and in the material world, so the attachments are there, but we have to become free from material attachments, and that can only be achieved when we are engaged in devotional service, when we are hearing about Krishna's pastimes with his associates. But in regards to the exchange with the gopis, some precautions or one has to be careful if one is not yet purified in consciousness, especially with the intimate exchange with the gopis. So the warning has been given by Prabhupada, by the previous acharyas, that we have to be careful in these regards. Because these are the transcendental loving exchanges between Krishna and the gopis, which are completely pure and most exalted. And then in the 35th chapter, there's the Yugal Gita is there, in regards to the wonderful pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, his associates. So in this chapter, Venu Gita, first of all, Shukadeva Goswami is speaking, and of course he is most exalted devotee, pure devotee of the Lord, as explained. And so when the pure devotees are describing the pastimes of the Lord, of course here in our Sampradaya, Gauri Vaishnava Sampradaya, to which we belong, most of the acharyas in our lines, they are not only associates of Mahaprabhu, but they are associates of, especially of Radha Krishna in Braj, as the 6 Goswamis, as we know. Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari, Raghunath Das Goswami is Rati Manjari, and so on. So they are most exalted. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has empowered his associates and then the devotees in disciplic succession to present these transcendental literatures, and based on that also Srila Prabhupada has written his purports. So by consulting the purports of the Vyakya, the Tika, of especially, of course, the original commentator is Sridhar Swami, but then also Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and based on that, also according to time, place and circumstances, Srila Prabhupada, he wrote his purports, and here in the purports by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, many times they are quoting actually what Krishna has explained, what Srila Prabhupada has explained in the Krishna book, which is the proper way, that we have to always refer to the previous acharyas. And then we may, as Prabhupada did, give some different points according to time, place and circumstances. So Shukadeva Goswami, so most exalted, and so he is, and so by describing the pastimes of the Lord, then usually the devotees, they become absorbed and they actually sing the pastimes also of the Lord. So Shukadeva Goswami is speaking that the acharyas have actually revealed. So he's speaking about here the gopis glorifying Krishna's flute, and that was at the time of Sharat Ritu. So now we're in Varsha Ritu, or we are Grishma Ritu, the end of the summer season, and then comes Sharat Ritu, the rainy season, and after that comes the Varsha Ritu, rainy season. After that comes Sharat Ritu. So that is pre-autumn, and then comes Hemanta Ritu is autumn, and then comes the Shishir Ritu, the winter season, and then of course Vasant Ritu, also very much glorified, the spring season. Actually all the seasons, they are eternally present in the spiritual realm, and when Krishna is present here, when Krishna appears in this material world, of course transcendental, then his abode is manifested, in which we are present here, Brajadham, Vrindavan Dham. So when Krishna is present, the 6 seasons are also present there, like most of the, practically all the associates of Krishna, the main associates, they also appear when Krishna is appearing. His Dham is appearing, his fruit is appearing, Govardhan Hill, Yamuna Devi, Tulsi Devi, Vrinda Devi. And then also, so the seasons are there. And all of them are wonderful and serving Krishna. But most glorified are the Vasant Ritu, the spring season, which is, as we mostly appreciate, especially when we get older. When you're young, you can tolerate any season, even the summer season or winter season. But when you get older, the summer season becomes a little difficult, or the winter season when it's very cold. Of course, now we have AC and we have heaters in the winter, so we can manage, but still, a little difficulty is there. So the Vasant Ritu is most pleasant, and similarly, also the Sharat Ritu. It is not too hot and not too cold. Because when Krishna is present, the summer season is not too hot, and the winter season is also not too cold. So Sharat Ritu is there. The very beautiful, after the rainy season, summer season, everything becomes a little dry, and the leaves and the grass, and the rivers, they don't have much water, but then during the rainy season everything becomes green, and the lakes and the rivers, they're full of water because of the rainy season. It becomes very, very pleasant. So at that time, so the gopis, so as explained here, in Sharad Ritu, they were glorifying Krishna's flute. And as we know, we have Sharad Ritu, Sharad Purnima, the glorious Sarva Manoram, the most enchanting and glorified Ras Leela, Krishna performed at the end of the Ashwin Maas, after Bhadra Maas, before Kartik, the last day, Sharad Purnima, and so Krishna performed the Ras Leela. So the wonderful loving exchanges there. So here, the gopis, as Shukadeva Goswami, he's actually seeing, he's not just describing, but he's seeing Krishna and he's seeing the gopis. And the acharyas explained that so the gopis, so his Shukadeva Goswami is explaining that they wanted to glorify Krishna, the gopis, as it is natural for the devotees to always want to glorify Krishna. But they were so much overwhelmed by transcendental loving sentiments that they were not able to describe the wonderful pastimes of Krishna, or especially here also the glorification of the flute. So therefore then Shukadeva Goswami, so he's relating, and then he's from his lotus mouth emanated a very wonderful verse which was discussed yesterday, Barhapitam Natavarava Pukanaya Kanikaram. So very wonderful verses there. And then after that, so he's explaining that the gopis, so they were able to control themselves. So they were overwhelmed by these emotions. They were not able to glorify Krishna, but then they were, after a little while, they were able to compose themselves. And as explained here, so abire, bire, they were embracing one another. And then after that, so they are describing Krishna's flute, and all the inhabitants of Braj, how they are attracted to ultimately Krishna, but Krishna's flute also, when Krishna is playing the flute. And the acharyas have explained, so the different verses will be there, starting from tomorrow, so till verse number 20. So actually till verse number 19, and then Shukadeva Goswami also is describing, or is ending the chapter, so to say. And in that also Srimati Radharani, so she has spoken one verse from her lotus mouth, the famous verse glorifying Govardhan has emanated. Hantayam adrir abala harirasya varya yadrama Krishna charana sparsha pramoda. So discussing and addressing the other gopis, so, and then glorifying Govardhan as Haridasya Varya, as the greatest of all the servants of Hari, Krishna. So that is, we can see that in these verses, so the gopis, they actually, so they are glorifying Krishna, glorifying the flute, and they are seeing the good fortune of all the different inhabitants of Braj, and not only in the human form of life, but even the animals, the deer, how they are fortunate, they are able to come very close to Krishna. And the parrots, they're sitting on the branches, and they're simply listening to Krishna playing the flute. And when Krishna is playing the flute, then such a wonderful sound is emanating, and everyone becomes stunned. And it is explained, the moving entities, they become stunned. And the non-moving, they become overwhelmed by transcendental emotions and they flow. Like the stones, they are melting. Or the trees also, they are like wanting to offer obeisances with the branches then going down slightly as to offer obeisances to Krishna. So they are appreciating all the Brijavasis, and they are feeling that we are not so fortunate and we don't have love for Krishna. So that is a symptom of the greatest devotees. They never think, oh, I'm a great devotee. They think I'm very insignificant. And they're constantly engaged in serving Krishna with all the senses, thinking about Krishna. But because Krishna is unlimited and they're realizing the nature, insignificant nature, so they are always most humble and they give all respect to others and they're not expecting any respect. So that can be seen here in the gopis also. So we should see these descriptions here of the gopis, also of course the external aspects, as we explaining now, that they are most humble and they are glorifying everyone else. So we should also try to be in that mood, and then ultimately, then in purified consciousness, then we can appreciate the transcendental emotions of the Brijavasis and specifically of the gopis when we are in purified consciousness. But first of all, we have to try to understand and realize that we are totally insignificant. And we should always try to see the good qualities in others and try to see how everyone is ultimately engaged in Krishna's service directly and indirectly. As even Krishna spoke to Lord Brahma, the Chatushloki, the 4 verses, nutshell verses, there, Vyatirik. So directly and indirectly we should see everything in connection to the Supreme Lord. So we should try to see Krishna everywhere, in everyone's heart. And everything Krishna is everywhere and everything is in Krishna. And everything is related to Krishna. So we should practice this and seeing from the gopis, and then we will be blessed ultimately. And then we will be able in purified consciousness then actually to understand when by the internal potency, Sarup Shakti, especially by the Acharyas have explained, the Samvit and the Hladini Shakti. The Samvit is Krishna, as we know, Sandini Shakti is the existence potency. The embodiment of that is Balaram, and then the Samvit, that is the knowledge potency, the consciousness, that is Krishna himself, and the Hladini Shakti, Srimati Radharani. So when we are nicely engaged in devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, then ultimately we'll be blessed by the mercy of Mahaprabhu also, and the associates, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami. And then when the internal potency is manifesting in our heart, the Samvit and the Hladini Shakti, then in purified consciousness, then we can appreciate Radha Krishna's pastimes with the help of the associates of the Lord, the gopis, and then Rupa Manjari, Rati Manjari. And then we can become completely free from all impurities. And so which are even there actually in the higher level, even if one is already on the platform of Nishta Ruchi, some little impurities are there. So we have to always remain extremely careful and humble and respectful and fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, and then we can advance more and more. But if there is a little inattention, then there will be also some difficulty there in the spiritual life, and then we may again fall down to a lower level of the platform of devotional service. So one has to be careful and be always in good association of the devotees who are more advanced, and we can nicely appreciate the wonderful pastimes, specifically as described here, which is ultimately the goal, to be absorbed but we have to, as explained, we have to go slowly but surely. We don't have to hurry, but we have to go through all of the books, Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then slowly but surely we can appreciate this transcendental subject matter by the mercy of the Lord. And therefore Prabhupada has explained, first we study the Bhagavad-Gita, and then the Srimad Bhagavatam, and after that, then we can approach the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then we'll have a more better understanding of the Srimad Bhagavatam by reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we can will be more purified in consciousness. So it is also now in Vrindavan Dham here in our temple, we started also the reading of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so in actually many temples now in ISKCON they have started reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, so which is ultimately, as Prabhupada has explained, the postgraduate study. But we have to study in order to advance more and more. So that is required, the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, and then we can fully appreciate the loving sentiments of Krishna and Braj, and specifically the loving sentiments, a loving exchange between Krishna and the gopis, as it is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So even in the Adi Lila, the 4th chapter, the description is there of the wonderful loving sentiments, specifically of Srimati Radharani. And then in the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rai Ramananda Roy, so question and answer session is there. And Mahaprabhu, although he's the Supreme Lord, but he came as a devotee and he was there as a sannyasi. Whereas Rai Ramananda Roy, he was a householder. He went from the Kayasta community, which was at that time even practically almost like Shudra caste, Shudra or the Vaishya community. But still he took the humble position and he approached him because he had heard from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that Rai Ramananda is a great devotee. And then he approached him and asked him questions. And first of all, he asked him to explain about devotional service. And Rai Ramananda, who as we know is Vishaka Devi in Krishna Lila, so didn't immediately speak about Krishna in Braj, or to speak of the gopis, but he is explaining about a preliminary process of devotional service, Vaidhi Bhakti, and then slowly but surely then he's coming to Braj. In the beginning Mahaprabhu is saying, this is all external, you speak more, go on further. And then when he's coming to Krishna's associates in Braj, then Mahaprabhu slowly is saying, very nice, but you speak more. And then he's speaking about the friends of Krishna, and then the parental love of Mother Yashoda, and he's becoming more and more satisfied. And then when he's saying, you speak further, please say more, then when he's speaking about the gopis, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was fully satisfied. And then even the different levels of the highest exchange between Krishna and the gopis, so he is explaining, and Mahaprabhu is deeply appreciating. So by hearing this, by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, hearing from the devotees, then we can come to a more better understanding, and then we can better then appreciate also the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, and specifically the wonderful loving exchange between Krishna and the gopis. So here in the purport it is mentioned that because actually many times when they meet Krishna the gopis, so the gopis are holding their home and they're coming to meet together, and sometimes different gopis are there, as we know in Radharani's group, and then the other gopis in the other groups are there, and it is explained by the acharyas, the different gopis of the different groups, not only Radharani and her gopis are speaking these verses, but the other gopis of the other groups, they all had come together. And then, but they all understood ultimately that we have the same mood, the same love towards Krishna. So that is also mentioned here in the purport, and therefore they are embracing each other. So there are always difficulties in this world, so therefore we have to come together, and then we have to encourage each other by speaking about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. And of course here, sometimes we need also some embrace. So the ladies, they embrace each other, and the Prabhus, they embrace each other also. And then they describe the wonderful pastimes. So we always need the help of each other, the encouragement, because the material energy is very strong. And on our own, we can never become fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. We need the association, especially the advanced devotees, but even the general devotees, and we should appreciate all the devotees. And then we can be properly situated, and then we can nicely advance, and then we can appreciate the wonderful loving exchange of Krishna with all his associates, and specifically the gopis. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Verse 4, it is explained that these gopis wanted to speak something.
Yes.
But Cupid disturbed their mind, and thus they could not speak.
Yes.
That also in the lecture also.
Yes.
So then these gopis were in pure love of Krishna.
Yes.
In the established mood.
Yes.
So how can this Cupid can affect like
Yes. Yeah, two kinds of Cupid. One is the material Cupid, and one is the spiritual Cupid. So there this transcendental love which is there, and so transcendental lust is there, which is pure. So the gopis' lust which is there, it is pure. But they're also overwhelmed actually by seeing Krishna, and they become completely overwhelmed, and then they want to be with Krishna, they want to embrace Krishna, they want to kiss Krishna. But that is pure. So therefore we have to be careful, and we have to be transcendently situated, and then we can appreciate the sentiments. They appear just like an ordinary person. Oh, look, they're lusty also, like other people in this world, men and women. Lust may be there, but it is not this kind of lust. It is transcendental. In the material world, it is for one's own sense gratification. One wants to enjoy, one becomes attracted to a woman, or woman to a man. Usually the principle there is lust in the material world, if Krishna is not in the center. One wants to do things for one's own self, but still there's some love is there in the material world also, and husband and wife, they come together, and there is not just about enjoying, but it is in a relationship, and then serving each other, and then helping each other, like that. But sometimes then lust will be there, and then one is overcome by that in the material world. That is material lust. Whereas in the spiritual world, so the loving exchange is there between Krishna and the gopis, so based on transcendental love, and then transcendental relationship, and wanting to transcendental loving exchange. The gopis, they just not only want to be kissed by Krishna, embraced, but they want to serve Krishna also. They are serving Krishna, and they understand Krishna is my best friend. Even the parental affection is there in the gopis also. They want to take Krishna, take care of Krishna, just like Maria Yashoda. This feeling is there sometimes also. So many feelings are there of the gopis in regards to Krishna, which are pure, because Krishna is at the center for Krishna's pleasure, Krishnendriya Priti, to satisfy Krishna's senses, to satisfy Krishna completely, not themselves. But by serving Krishna this way, then they will be satisfied also, and they know that. At the same time, then sometimes they also become overwhelmed by transcendental lust, and they want to be embraced by Krishna. And they want to kiss Krishna, they want to Krishna to kiss them. Like for example, they are seeing that Krishna is playing the flute. Krishna is kissing the flute, and they become a little jealous. They're thinking, oh, the flute, this is actually for us. Krishna should kiss us. Why is he kissing the flute? And the flute is just a bamboo, some wood. And even there's male and female among the wood also, Vamsi and Venu, male and female there. So then they're thinking, well, the one he was playing first, so the Vamsi is male. And then they're thinking, this is strange, why is kissing the Vamsi like that, which we know that is not proper, right? Man and man more intimate relationship. You can be friends, you can put your hand around, you can hold the hand of a man, but that's all. But you're not kissing man, right? That would be improper. So then they're thinking, why Krishna is kissing the flute? Krishna is playing the flute. But they want to embrace Krishna, they want to kiss Krishna, and they want also that Krishna is kissing them. So they are saying Krishna is kissing the flute. But that should be for us. And they are a little envious of the flute also. Like this. So, but it is completely pure, but they just become completely pure, but they become overwhelmed by transcendental Cupid, by Krishna. Krishna is the transcendental Cupid. And he's shooting the arrows. The Kandarpa, the material Cupid, has no chance in front of Krishna, the gopis. He cannot do anything. Failure. And even he got burnt to ashes by Shiva one time. He approached the wrong person. Therefore he's known as Ananga. So, but Krishna is a transcendental Cupid. And then he's looking at the gopis, and then he becomes just lost. But even Krishna, sometimes he becomes lost. He becomes overwhelmed when the gopis are shooting sidelong glances at Krishna. Then they also become Krishna becomes bewildered, and he drops his flute and his chadar, and sometimes he faints. Like this. But these are transcendental emotions. But then intimate relationship is there between Krishna and Radharani, which we don't want to discuss too much here. But it is there, that is the transcendental lust. So they were overcome by transcendental lust. So therefore they were not able to describe Krishna. But then they composed themselves, and then they were able to describe Krishna. And glorify Krishna, glorify the flute, glorify all the other Brijabasis, the birds and the deer, like this. So is that clear? Okay. What's that? Yes. And the Cupid is Krishna himself. Is transcendental Cupid. Krishna is transcendental, right? And then he is... by seeing him, they become bewildered by Krishna only. And then the emotions are there. They want to be intimate with Krishna at that time. But other times they are more controlled, and then they want to serve Krishna. Krishna is our best friend. They want to take care of Krishna just like Mother Yashoda. So different moods are there. But the sthai bhav, the permanent ecstasy, is that Krishna is my beloved. Is the Lord of my life. And then they want some intimate association with Krishna. And that is the Cupid is not present there. But that is Krishna himself is the cause of that. Or then the internal energy, his own energy. Nothing material is there. Okay? Okay. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. Yes. Yeah.
My question is like the other statement.
Yes.
That Vaikuntha, Dwarka and Golok.
Yeah.
There are difference in perfection.
Yes.
Some Vaikuntha it is perfect, Dwarka is more perfect. More perfect you say.
Dwarka is perfect.
Mathura is more perfect. Mathura is more perfect. But Raj